first thing I learned about my new life was the sound it made breaking. Marble under my knees, my name in a stranger's mouth, and the word rejected, spoken like it cost him nothing at all. I did not wake up. That is the part nobody warns you about. 1 second I was somewhere else, somewhere that already felt like a rumor, and the next I was kneeling on cold stone in a room full of people in very expensive clothing, and my throat was raw like I had been saying please for a while. Rude. Whoever I had been before, I was pretty sure I did not beg. A man stood over me. Tall, dark suit, jaw like something carved on purpose. He held a folder in one hand, and he was not looking at me the way you look at a person. He was looking at me the way you look at a line item. The bond contract between the Vaughn and Bellamy packs is void, he said. I reject the claim. Somebody in the back of the room laughed. Not a big laugh, a small one. The kind that says this is what we came for. Here is what I knew, in order. My name was Wren Bellamy. I was 23. My knees hurt, and every single face in that ballroom was watching me like I was a car accident they had paid tickets for. Here is what I did not know. Anything else. So I did the only reasonable thing. I pressed my palm flat against the marble and pushed myself up. That was my mistake, and also the best thing that happened to me all night. Because the floor talked. It came in fast, the way cold water comes in through a crack. A boy on his knees on this exact spot, 3 weeks ago, alone, nobody watching, hands shaking as he signed something. The rest of the room dark, his scent all over the stone, salt and rain and grief, and a second set of footsteps leaving before he was finished. Then it was gone and I was standing, and my heart was hammering like it wanted out of my ribs. 3 weeks ago. The room had been empty 3 weeks ago, which meant tonight was not a decision. Tonight was a performance, and I had been handed the worst part in it. Wren, my father's voice. I knew it was my father because the body I was wearing flinched before I did, which is a deeply upsetting thing to learn about yourself in public. Gideon Bellamy had silver at the temples and the warm, patient face of a man who has never once been patient. Apologize to Alpha Vaughn for the inconvenience. The inconvenience of being rejected in front of 200 people at my own bonding. I looked at my father. I looked at my half-brother Preston beside him, who was already wearing the pin and Heir wears, on a night when I was supposedly still the heir. I looked at the folder in the Alpha's hand, and the way the paper inside it had gone soft at the corner from being handled a lot, over a long time. And something in me, some part that did not belong to poor Wren who had knelt here alone, stood all the way up. Sure, I said. Sorry for the inconvenience. Next time I'll get rejected on a weekday. Better for everyone's calendar. The ballroom made a sound like a held breath. My father's jaw moved. Preston's eyebrows went up so far they nearly left. Somewhere to my left, a server stopped pouring. And the Alpha finally looked at me. Not at the line item. At me. Beckett Vaughn. That was the name that came with the face. Dragged up from a body that clearly had opinions about it. 31. Owned half the tech corridor between here and Boulder. The kind of alpha the Denver Packs talked about in low voices, the way you talk about weather that has already ruined somebody else's house. His scent hit me a half-second later, and I hated that it was good. Cedar, and something colder underneath, like snow on stone. It did not smell like a man who had just thrown someone away. It smelled controlled, locked down, held. You're different tonight, he said. Understatement of the century, buddy. Long night, I said. He did not blink. There was a stillness to him that was starting to feel less like arrogance and more like a man standing very carefully on ice. You signed it 3 weeks ago, I thought, and my hands were shaking, and I kept my face pleasant, because that is a skill you either have or you learn on a marble floor. You signed it 3 weeks ago and let him get dressed for this anyway. What kind of person does that? Beckett Vaughn's head turned, sharp, fast, like I had said it out loud. I had not said it out loud. I know I had not, because my mouth was closed and my teeth were pressed together hard enough to ache. He stared at me for 4 full seconds, long enough for my father to clear his throat, long enough for the string quartet to give up and start playing again. Then he closed the folder, and his voice came out different, lower, careful in a way it had not been all night. Bellamy, he said. Don't leave the city. 200 people heard it. I know they did, because the room changed temperature. A rejection is a closed door. That was a door left cracked, and every pack in Denver was standing right there watching him leave it that way. That's not really how rejection works, I said. You throw the fish back. You don't get to name it. Something moved across his face. It was gone before I could read it. Then he walked past me, close enough that his sleeve brushed my knuckles, and cedar went straight through me like cold air through an open window, and my whole body did something humiliating and involuntary, and I stood very still until it passed. He did not look back. The crowd folded shut behind him, which left me alone in a ballroom with my family, which was worse. You embarrassed yourself, my father said. I was on the floor when I got here. Ceiling was the only direction available. Preston laughed, not the small laugh from earlier, a real one, delighted, and it made my skin crawl in a way I could not explain yet. He had a glass of something amber, and he was rolling it between his palms like he was warming it up. He said, "Stay," Preston said. Isn't that interesting? Preston. I'm just saying. He tipped the glass toward me. Nobody tells the trash to stick around. I wanted to break his nose. Wren's body wanted to apologize. We compromised and I said nothing, which felt like losing. My father took my elbow. His grip was gentle, and it was not a request. Car, now. I let him steer me 3 steps toward the doors. Then I stopped, because the folder was still there. Beckett had set it down on the corner of the head table when he closed it, left it. A man who had walked in here holding it like a verdict had put it down and forgotten it, or had not forgotten it at all. I need a second, I said. Bathroom. Unless you'd like me to embarrass myself again, this time with plumbing. My father let go, mostly because Preston was already talking to somebody important, and he wanted to be in that conversation. I crossed to the table, picked up a champagne flute I did not want, set my other hand flat on the folder like I was steadying myself. The rest of the room went out like a light. Beckett's office. Late. That particular blue late, where the windows are just mirrors. The folder open in front of him, and a pen in his hand and his knuckles white around it. He was not reading. He had been sitting there long enough that the coffee beside him had a skin on it. Then a voice from somewhere behind him, out of frame, a man's voice, calm as a doctor. Sign it or he dies. Beckett signed it. I came back into my body so fast I nearly took the glass off the table with me. My ears were ringing. My mouth tasted like copper. Somebody was talking near me, and I could not hear a single word of it. Sign it or he dies. Who? Who dies? Wren was standing right here, breathing, being sarcastic about plumbing. Unless it was not Wren. You're going to want to put that down. I turned around too fast. Beckett Vaughn was standing 4 feet away, coat over his arm, watching my hand on the folder like it was a live wire. You left, I said, stupidly. I came back for that. He nodded at it. Did not move closer. You're pale. I'm always pale. It's a whole thing. Very fashionable in certain circles. Wren. The way he said it stopped me. Not sharp. Not the ballroom voice. Quiet, like he was checking whether the ice would hold. He came closer. 1 step. Cedar and snow. And under it, for the first time, something ragged. Alphas can hide a lot in their scent. They cannot hide adrenaline. He was afraid of something. Not of me. Near me. What did you see? He said. My heart stopped for a full beat. Because he did not say what's wrong. He did not say what happened. He said, what did you see? And there was no version of this evening where he should have known there was anything to see. I made myself smile. It felt like putting on a coat 2 sizes too small. Champagne, I said. Terrible vintage. You have my condolences. He looked at me, and I watched him decide something, and I watched him decide not to say it, and both of those happened in about a second and a half, behind eyes the color of wet slate. Right, he said. He reached past me for the folder. His forearm crossed in front of my chest, close enough that I felt the warmth of him through 2 layers of fabric, close enough that I could have counted his pulse if I had wanted to, and I absolutely did not want to, and I counted it anyway. Don't, I thought. Do not stand this close to a person you humiliated in public an hour ago. He went completely still. Then, very low, near my ear, so nobody at the head table could hear a word of it. I know. He took the folder and walked out, and I stood there with my hand curled around nothing, my pulse going like a fist on a door, and the only clear thought I had left was that he had answered me. He had answered a thing I never said. I stood there long enough that a server asked if I needed water. I said yes. He brought it. I did not drink it. I just held the glass, because holding something is what you do when your hands have decided to have a personal crisis without consulting you. 200 people in a room, and the only one who had heard me was the one who threw me away. That was the sentence going around my head on a loop, and I hated the shape of it, and I could not put it down. You're still here. Preston, at my shoulder. He had a fresh drink. He smelled like citrus and money and something underneath it that made my back teeth ache. So are you, I said. Yet somehow neither of us is dead of embarrassment. Medical marvel. He talked to you. He talks to lots of people. That's what mouths are for. Preston set his glass down on the table, and I watched the ring of moisture spread on the linen, and I thought about how badly I wanted to put my hand flat on that table and find out what he had been doing in this room 3 weeks ago. Because someone had been. Someone's footsteps had left before Wren finished signing. You should go home, Preston said, and for 1 second his voice was almost kind, and that was the part that scared me. Whatever you think is happening, you're wrong about it. He's not being nice to you. Nobody has been nice to me all evening. I'd have noticed. I keep a list. He laughed and walked off, and I let out a breath I had been holding since he sat his drink down. My father found me at the doors. The ride home was a black car and 11 minutes of silence, and the smell of my own suppressants going stale on my skin. The Bellamy house sat on a ridge west of the city, with the whole valley laid out below it like something spilled. Denver at night is not a skyline so much as a long orange smear with mountains sitting behind it, pretending they are not there. I got out of the car. My father did not. Preston will handle the Vaughn accounts, he said through the window. You'll stay in the house. You'll answer no calls. Do I get a bedtime, or is that negotiable? Wren. He looked at me then. Actually looked, and I saw a tired man who had already lost something and had decided which of his sons was the acceptable cost. I am trying to keep you alive. The window went up before I could ask him what that meant. Wren's room was on the 3rd floor. I knew that the way you know things in a dream, my feet finding stairs before my brain agreed to them. Blue walls, a desk, a window seat with a dent in the cushion, the shape of a person who sat there a lot, alone, for long stretches. I did not touch anything for a while. That was deliberate. Everything in that room had a history, and I was not sure I could survive being told all of it at once. Then my phone lit up on the nightstand. Unknown number. Are you alone? I stared at it. Typed and deleted 4 things. All of them funnier than what I sent, which was, who is this? You know who this is. I did. God help me, I did. And my pulse did something ridiculous, and I sat down on the edge of the bed, because standing had become optional. Bold of a man to text someone he publicly dumped 4 hours ago. 3 hours. Oh, my mistake. Let's be accurate about the worst night of my life. The dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. A man like that, hesitating over a phone, and something in my chest turned over. I need to ask you something and you're going to lie to me. I'd rather you lied to my face. Then come and get lied to. I'm on a ridge, it's freezing, and I've had a bad evening. Bring snacks. I hit send, and immediately wanted to throw the phone off the balcony. Because here is the thing I had been refusing to look at directly for 3 hours. A man who can hear you does not need you to answer. He does not need your face. He was not coming to ask me a question. He was coming to check whether the thing in the ballroom had been real. And I could not decide which answer would get me killed faster. I made myself stand up. Made myself walk to the window seat. Because if I was going to be interrogated by an alpha with a talent I did not understand, I wanted to know what the person I was wearing had been afraid of. I put my hand on the cushion. Wren, in this exact spot, knees pulled up, phone against his ear. Crying so quietly it was mostly shoulders. And a voice on the other end, tinny and small, saying a name. Not Beckett's name. Preston, the voice said. Please. He's already dead by now. Headlights swung across the ceiling and I did not move, because my hand was still on the cushion and my ears were still full of that small, tinny voice saying my brother's name. He's already dead by now. Who? Wren, whoever you were, who were you crying about? The engine cut, a car door, boots on gravel, unhurried, a man who has never once had to run anywhere in his life. I got to the window in time to see Beckett Vaughn look up at the third floor and find me without searching for me. Right, of course, radar. I went down the back stairs because the front hall had a housekeeper in it, and I met him on the terrace with my arms crossed and my heart doing something undignified. No snacks, I said. I'm noting that. You said you were freezing. He held out his coat. I looked at it. Wool, expensive, still warm from the car, and it would smell like him, and I would have to give it back eventually and pretend that had not happened. That's a trap. It's a coat. It's a trap shaped like a coat. He kept holding it out. I took it, because it was 38 degrees and I have principles but not that many. Cedar closed over me and my whole body went quiet like a dog told to sit, and I stood there furious about it. Ask your question, I said. Beckett looked at the valley for a second. Denver. Spilled orange. Mountains pretending. 3 weeks ago, he said, you signed the dissolution in the Bellamy ballroom, alone, at 11 at night. Nobody was in that building but you, me, and one other person, and you have never once mentioned it. Not to your father, not to the pack, not to anyone. He turned. Tonight you walked in there and your first thought was that it happened 3 weeks ago. So he had heard that, the whole thing, from the floor. That's not a question. How do you know? Lucky guess. I'm very intuitive. It's my only trait. Wren, you want the truth? I pulled the coat tighter. Fine, but you go first, because you have been standing there for a minute and a half acting like a man who's asking, and you're not asking. You already know I'm going to lie. You told me so on the phone. Something in his face gave, very slightly, like a wall settling. Yes, he said. So say the actual thing. He was quiet. Then flat, without any drama at all, which somehow made it worse. I hear you. Not everyone. You. I have since the first time we were in a room together, and I have not been able to stop, and tonight, on that floor, you thought about a night nobody should be able to see. The wind came up the ridge and moved his hair, and neither of us said anything for a moment. Okay, I said. Cool. Normal. That's your reaction. You want screaming? I can scream. I'd need a minute to warm up. My hands were shaking inside his sleeves. What am I supposed to do, Vaughn? Faint? I've had a very full evening. Most people would be afraid of me. Most people got proposed to and rejected by you inside the same building. I'm ahead of the curve. I made myself look at him. Do it. Right now. Prove it. He held my eyes. You're standing too close, I thought. You know exactly what you're doing and you're doing it anyway, and I want you to stop, and I don't. And if you say that out loud, I will throw myself off this ridge. Beckett Vaughn took one step back. Not toward, back. And that undid something in me more than any of it, because a man with that kind of advantage does not give ground unless he has decided the advantage is a problem. Okay, I said, softer. Okay. Now you. I opened my mouth. Downstairs, the front gate buzzed. 2 cars, not one. No headlights, which is a choice people make on purpose. They came up the drive slow and stopped short of the house. And men got out, 4 of them, and none of them were dressed like a driver. Beckett's whole scent changed. The cedar went thin, and something cold came up under it. And I finally understood that what I had smelled in the ballroom was not arrogance. It was a man who had been braced for something for weeks. Inside, he said. That's my house. Wren. That is my house. Those are my father's gates. And I would like to know why 4 men are walking up my driveway at midnight without their lights on. Because I came here, he said. They followed me. They have been following me since I signed that folder, and the last person I spoke to alone did not survive the week. The terrace tilted a little. Sign it or he dies. Who? I said. Who was he? And Beckett stopped. Right there, with 4 men crossing the gravel below us, he stopped and looked at me like I had reached into his chest. You said he said. Beckett. Nobody knows there was a he. The first man reached the steps. Beckett's hand closed around my wrist, warm and absolutely steady, and he did not pull. He waited half a second, asking, which was somehow the most shocking thing that had happened all night. I turned my hand over and let his fingers slide between mine. Fine, I said, but I'm keeping the coat. We went in through the kitchen door. Beckett moved through a house he had never been inside, like he had memorized the floor plan on the drive up, and I decided to be impressed about that later, when I had time. The housekeeper was gone. My father's study light was off. In a house that size, empty registers as a sound. Basement, I said. There's a service stair off the pantry. Comes out at the garage. He looked at me. Don't, I said. I'm figuring out this house one room at a time like everybody else. We got as far as the pantry before the front door opened. Not kicked, opened with a key. Beckett's hand tightened around mine and we went still between the shelves, and I could hear my own pulse in my ears, and under the flour and the cinnamon and the cold, cedar, steady, refusing to spike. Boots in the hall, 2 sets, then a third, lighter, unhurried. He's not here, a man's voice, calm as a doctor. I knew that voice. I had heard it in an office, 3 weeks ago, out of frame, telling Beckett to sign or someone died. Beside me, Beckett had gone the kind of still that cost something. Check upstairs, the calm voice said, and find out where Preston went. He was supposed to keep the boy at the party. Everything in me dropped straight through the floor. The footsteps split. 2 went up. The calm one walked into the kitchen, 10 feet from where we stood behind a door that was open 4 inches, and I watched him through the gap. Older, gray at the temples, wearing my father's house like he had a right to it. He picked up something from the counter, turned it over, set it down. Then he left, and the front door closed, and I could not make my hands unclench. Beckett got the pantry door shut and his back against it, and he said, very low, breathe. I'm breathing. I'm doing it constantly. It's my best skill. Wren. Who was that? He did not answer fast enough, so I did the thing I had been avoiding all night. I put my palm flat on the shelf where the calm man's hand had been. It came in like a wave breaking over my head. This kitchen, 3 weeks ago. Wren on his knees again, but not signing anything this time. Holding someone. A boy, younger, 17 maybe, with the same dark hair and the same stubborn chin, and blood soaking through the front of his shirt, and Wren's hands pressed flat on it, trying to keep something inside that would not stay. Ollie, Wren was saying, Ollie, don't do that. Look at me. And the calm man standing in the doorway with a phone to his ear saying, without any heat at all, tell Vaughn the price went up. The vision let go of me, and I came down hard on my knees on the pantry floor, exactly the way this night had started, and I could not get air in. Beckett was down there with me before I registered him moving, hands on my shoulders, not gripping, just there. Ollie, I said. My voice came out wrecked. There was a boy. He was 17. He was 17, Beckett. His face changed, all of it, every locked thing. Oliver Bellamy, he said, your brother. Then you knew. I knew he was dead. I knew I signed a piece of paper to keep him alive, and it did not work. His voice cracked straight down the middle and he did not try to hide it. I did not know you were holding him. Nobody told me that. Nobody has said his name to me in 3 weeks. I looked at him. This cold, careful man with his hands shaking on my shoulders. You rejected me to protect me, I said. I rejected you because the only thing keeping you off their list was being worthless to them. A bonded Bellamy heir with my name behind him is leverage. An unbonded one is furniture. He breathed out. I made you furniture, in front of 200 people. I have replayed it every night since. You could have told me. You'd have argued. I would have argued brilliantly. Something happened at the corner of his mouth. It was not a smile, it was the ruin of one, and I stopped thinking, which is the only excuse I have. I got a handful of his shirt and pulled, and he came, and his mouth met mine, and it was not gentle. It was 3 weeks of a man not saying a word to anyone. His hand came up into my hair and mine was flat against his chest, feeling his heart go, and cedar flooded everything, and for 4 whole seconds nothing in the world was on fire. Then I pulled back an inch and said, against his mouth, "This is a terrible idea." "Catastrophic," he agreed, and kissed me again. "I'm going to get you killed," I thought. He stopped. "That's mine to worry about," he said. "Then stop listening." "I've tried." His forehead came down against mine, every day since March, and my blood went cold, because tonight was the first time Wren Bellamy had ever been in a room with Beckett Vaughn. I had read it off the ballroom floor myself. "Beckett," I said carefully, "what happened in March?" His forehead was still against mine. I felt him go still, that particular stillness he had, a man standing very carefully on ice. "You know what happened in March. Humor me." "Wren." "Say it." He pulled back far enough to look at me, and the pantry light made hard shadows under his eyes, and I realized he was exhausted, in a way 3 weeks does not account for. "The scent gala at the Whitfield," he said. "You spilled a drink on my sleeve and told me the tie was a mistake, and I heard you the whole way home. A breath. 6 months of hearing you, and you have never once looked at me like you had any idea. 6 months. I had put my hand on that ballroom floor and read 3 weeks. Not 6 months, which meant Wren had been in a room with this man before, more than once, and had thought about him hard enough to be heard, and had never told a single soul. The person whose body I was wearing had been in love with him quietly since March. And I had just kissed him with somebody else's mouth. Something turned over in my chest that was not mine. Grief with no memory attached to it. The way an empty house still holds a shape. "Oh," I thought. "Oh, Wren. You poor thing." Beckett's head came up. "Why are you talking about yourself like that?" "I'm not. You just did. I have a rich inner life, Vaughn. It's a whole ecosystem in here. Try not to graze." He did not laugh. He looked at me the way you look at a lock that will not turn. Then, quietly, "You've been someone else all night. Since the floor. Your voice in my head changed shape, and I have been standing here pretending I didn't notice." The furnace kicked on somewhere below us. That was the only sound for a while. I could have lied. I had a good one ready. I always do. It is the closest thing to a survival skill I have. Instead I said, "Would you believe me? I've had 3 weeks of believing impossible things. Try me." Okay, my throat hurt. I don't remember March. I don't remember Ollie. I don't remember your tie, and I'm sure it was a genuine crime. I woke up on that floor tonight, and everything before it belongs to somebody I've never met. I made myself hold his eyes. The only way I know anything is by touching it. That's what I do. Objects tell me. That's how I saw the folder. That's how I saw your office and a man telling you to sign, or he dies. Beckett did not move for a long moment. Then he sat down on the pantry floor, back against the shelves, and pulled a hand down his face. "So he's gone," he said. "I don't know." "The Wren who spilled the drink." "I don't know." My voice cracked and I hated it. I'm sitting in his house wearing his clothes and I found out an hour ago he watched his little brother die on this floor. I'd give him back if I knew how. I'd hand it over right now. "Don't." He said it fast. Then again, softer. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because he begged me for something in March and I said no. And you're the only reason anyone in this house is still standing." He looked up at me. "And because you told a man who can hear every thought in your head that you're a stranger in that body, which is the most dangerous thing you own, and you said it out loud anyway." I sat down across from him, close enough that our knees touched. "You want to know the actual reason I said it?" "Yes. Because you gave ground on the terrace." I shrugged, like it cost nothing. It cost everything. You had every advantage in the world, and you stepped back. Nobody has done anything like that for me since I got here. Which is admittedly about 5 hours, but the sample size is what it is. He reached over, turned my hand palm up in his and traced one line across it with his thumb, slow, like he was reading it the way I read a room. "Tell me what this says," he said. "Nothing? People don't work like objects." My breath had gone unreliable. "Living things are too loud." "Good. Why good?" "Because I'd like one thing between us that neither of us can take without asking." And that was worse than the kiss. That was so much worse. I leaned in and kissed him again anyway, slow this time, his hand still holding mine open between us, cedar and cinnamon and the cold coming under the door, and I felt his fingers curl closed around my palm like he was keeping something safe in there. When I pulled back, my forehead against his jaw, I let myself have exactly one thought, deliberately, knowing he would hear it. I would like to survive this. "Then we go now," he said. My phone lit up on the pantry floor between us. Preston. Calling. And under his name, a photo I had never seen, the two of us at some pack barbecue, my arm around his neck, both of us laughing like brothers who liked each other. "Don't," Beckett said. "He's the only one who knows where everyone is tonight." "That's exactly why." I answered it and put it on speaker, and set the phone on the floor between us, like something that might go off. "Wren," Preston sounded out of breath. "Where are you?" "Kitchen pantry." "Living my best life." "You? You need to listen to me. Dad's gone, the house is compromised, and if Vaughn is with you, he is the reason those men came up the drive." A pause. "He is with you, isn't he?" Beckett's jaw set. "Preston," I said. "Who's Ollie?" The line went quiet. Long enough that I heard traffic on his end. Long enough that I knew. "Where did you hear that name?" he said. "You were supposed to keep the boy at the party." I kept my voice light. It took everything. "That's what the comm man said, standing in our kitchen with a key. He said find out where Preston went. He was supposed to keep the boy at the party." "Wren." "Say his name." "You don't understand what you're in." "Then explain it." "Slowly. Use small words. I've had a night." "Ollie was 17, Preston said, and his voice broke open, and that was the part I was not ready for. "He was 17, and he was mine to look after, and he is dead because Vaughn signed a piece of paper instead of doing what they asked." Beside me, Beckett closed his eyes. "They wanted the Vaughn transit contracts," Preston said. "That's all. Freight routes through the corridor. They took Ollie to make him hand them over. And your alpha, your careful, clever alpha, he negotiated. He signed a dissolution instead. He gave them your bond and kept his company." His breath hitched. "He bought a piece of paper with our brother." The furnace hummed. The cold came under the door. "Is that true?" I said. Beckett did not open his eyes. "Yes." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." "You said you signed it to keep him alive." "I did." Both things are true. They asked for the routes. I offered them the bond, because I believed a dissolution would satisfy them, and the routes would not, and I was wrong, and your brother died on this floor, while I was in my office deciding I had been clever. I got up. I do not remember deciding to. "You knew," I said. "In the ballroom. You stood over me and rejected me in front of 200 people, and you knew what that paper had already cost, and you let me be the one on my knees." "Yes." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Agree with me." It came out of me raw. "Argue, explain. Do the thing where you're careful. Give me something to hate that isn't just a man sitting on a floor saying yes." "I won't lie to you." He stood, slowly, and did not come closer. "You'd hear it eventually. Everyone does, with me. It's the one mercy I have left." "Mercy?" I laughed, and it sounded terrible. "You want to talk to me about mercy? You've been in my head for 6 months. You heard him, in March. You heard Wren the whole way home, and you heard him again when he was holding his brother in this room, didn't you?" Beckett went white. That was the answer. "You heard him," I said. "You heard it happen, and you stayed in your office." "I was 40 minutes away. You heard it happen." "Yes." His voice came apart entirely. "I heard all of it. I hear it now. I have not slept since. On the phone, Preston said my name. Neither of us answered him. I picked the phone up off the floor. My hands were steady, which surprised me, because nothing else was. Preston, where are you? End of the drive. Get out of the house. Wren, Beckett said. Don't. I looked at him. At the coat still around my shoulders, warm, smelling like him, a trap shaped like a coat. You should have told me before you let me kiss you, I thought, and I made it as clear and slow as I could, because I wanted him to have every word of it. He took it standing, did not flinch, did not look away, and somehow that was worse than if he had. I put the coat on the pantry shelf. I'm not going with him because I trust him, I said. I'm going because I'm going to find out what he did that night too, and you'll hear it when I do. I walked out through the kitchen where Ollie died, and nobody followed me, and the cold outside was clean and terrible. Preston's car sat at the end of the drive with the door open. He was crying, actually crying, ruined, 17 years of somebody's brother all over his face. And when I opened the passenger door, my hand closed around the handle, and the metal was still warm, and it showed me his hands on this same door 4 hours ago, before the party, folding a piece of paper and pushing it under the seat. A dissolution form, signed by Preston, dated in March. I let go of the handle and got in and shut the door, and Preston wiped his face with the back of his wrist like a kid caught doing it. Drive, I said. Wren, you're at the end of a driveway with 4 men somewhere behind us, and you want to have a conversation with the engine off. Drive. He drove. We came down off the ridge with the whole orange smear of the city opening up below us, and neither of us said anything for 1.5 miles, and I reached under my seat. The paper was exactly where his hands had put it. He saw it in my lap at the next light, and something went out of him. His shoulders came down. He did not even try. How? He said. Turns out I'm full of surprises. It's been a whole evening of personal growth. I unfolded it. His signature, hard and slanted, and the date, and a pack seal that should not have been available to a second son. March. You dissolved my bond in March. 6 months before the man I was supposedly bonded to stood in a ballroom and did it again, for an audience. Yes. Say why. Because Dad was going to trade you. He said it to the windshield. The corridor deal was collapsing, and the Bellamy side of it needed something to put on the table, and you were the only thing we had that anyone wanted. A bonded heir with the Vaughn name behind him is worth something to people who move freight. His jaw worked, so I made you worth nothing. I voided the bond and I buried the filing, and I never told you, because if you knew, you'd have marched into his study and told him to his face, and then he'd have known too. I sat with that. 2 men, 6 months apart. Same math, same solution, both of them so proud of how clever they were being. You made me furniture, I said. What? Nothing. It's a theme. I was going to tell you after, Preston said. After the deal died. I had a plan, and it was a good plan, and it took 4 days too long. His voice went thin. They took Ollie on a Tuesday. The car got very quiet. You were supposed to keep the boy at the party, I said. The calm man. Standing in our kitchen. Say that part. Preston pulled onto the shoulder. Put the car in park. Sat with both hands on the wheel like he needed them there. They contacted me the day after they took him, he said. Not Dad, not Vaughn. Me. Because I was the one who filed the dissolution, and there is exactly one way to know a filing exists when it's buried. Somebody told them. Somebody with access to the Vaughn side of the paperwork. He looked at me for the first time. They said they'd give Ollie back for information. Small things. Where Dad was. Where Vaughn was. Which room you'd be in. His mouth twisted. I told myself I was buying time. I sold my family in pieces for 11 days and they killed him anyway. And I stood at that party tonight doing the last thing they asked me to do, and I laughed at you in front of 200 people so nobody would look at my hands. I looked at my brother, who was in a photograph on my phone with my arm around his neck. I wanted to hate him. It would have been so much easier, and I could not do it, because I had watched a man sit on a pantry floor an hour ago and say yes to every accusation I threw at him, and here was another one doing the same thing, and both of them had done it for the same stupid reason. His name, I said, the calm one. Lawrence Pike. I did not know it. My hands did, though. Something went cold across my palms, the way a room tells you it remembers. Who does he work for, Preston? Preston did not answer. Who signs his checks? Vaughn, he said. He's Vaughn's general counsel. He's had power of attorney on the transit contracts for 4 years. The city sat down there glowing, and I could not feel my hands at all. Beckett had spent 3 weeks braced for men on a driveway, and the man had been standing in his own doorway the whole time, out of frame, saying sign it or he dies in the voice you use to read someone their own bad news. And Beckett could not hear him. He could not hear anyone. He could hear one person on this entire earth, and that person had been on the floor of a ballroom being publicly ruined. That doesn't fix it, I said out loud. What? Nothing. I folded the paper along its old creases. He still traded my bond for the roots. Nobody made him do that. A man behind him doesn't unmake the part where he decided he was the smartest person in the room. Preston watched me. So what do you want to do? And there it was. The first time all night anybody had asked me that. I had been carried out of a ballroom, driven up a ridge, pulled through a kitchen, put in a car. 5 hours of being moved. Wren had spent his whole life being moved, and everyone who loved him had done it, while telling themselves it was protection, and it had killed a 17-year-old boy anyway. I was done being handled by people who thought they were saving me. Turn around, I said. Take me to the Vaughn building. Wren, Pike is going to be there. Good, I'd hate to make the trip twice. I closed my eyes and thought it as clearly as I have ever thought anything, slow, every word laid out flat, for the one man in Colorado who would hear it. Beckett, don't sign anything. I know who he is. I'm coming. And 30 seconds later, my phone rang. Not his number. Pike's. I answered on the third ring, because 2 is eager and 4 is scared. Mr. Bellamy. Calm as a doctor. You've had a full evening. I've been told. Repeatedly. By everyone. I'd like to make this simple. There's a signature I need from your alpha tonight, and he has become difficult about it. He responds to pressure applied to people he cares about. You've made yourself the obvious candidate. That's flattering. Genuinely. I've been furniture since 8 o'clock. Come to the building alone and nobody else in your family has a bad year. Sure, I said. But I'm bringing my brother, because he drives and I never learned, which is embarrassing, but here we are. I hung up on him. That felt excellent. Wren, Preston said. Drive faster. The Vaughn building sat downtown with 2 floors still lit, and the lobby doors were unlocked, and that told me everything about how confident Lawrence Pike was. He was waiting on the 40th floor in a conference room, with glass on 3 sides and the whole valley behind him. Beckett stood at the far end of the table, 2 of the driveway men by the door, a folder open on the table with a pen laid across it, precisely, like a place setting. Beckett's eyes found me, and I felt him arrive in my head, and for once I was glad of it. The table, I thought. Give me 9 seconds at the table. He did not react at all. God, he was good at this. Sit, Pike said. I'll stand. Been on my knees enough tonight. I walked to the table anyway, put both palms flat on it, and leaned like a man being casual. The building told me everything. 4 years of that table. Pike's hands on it 1,000 times. Pike in this room at 6 in the morning with a phone, saying a boy's name. Pike alone at midnight moving pages between 2 folders. And under all of it, over and over, the same physical habit. A man who did not trust a server or a lawyer or anyone alive, pressing a small steel key into the underside of the table's edge, 4 inches left of the center seam, because the safest place to keep a thing is somewhere no one thinks to look up. I took my hands off the table. You're recording this, I said. Pike smiled. No. You are. You've recorded everything in this room for 4 years. Every call, every meeting, every time somebody with a nicer office than yours said something they'd regret. I tipped my head. Ollie's name is on those files. So is every conversation where somebody told you what to do, and I'd bet my last functioning nerve that nobody ever did. Nobody hired you. You built it. You're not muscle for somebody. You're a man who spent 4 years quietly becoming the only person who knew where all the paper was. The smile stayed, the eyes did not. That's a lot of theory. It's under the table, I said. Left of the seam. Pike moved. So did Beckett. He did not go for Pike. He went for the folder and he tore it in half down the middle, and then in half again, and let it fall. There, he said. Now there's nothing to sign, and everything you have is worth precisely what it was worth this morning, which is nothing, because it was always going to come down to this room, and one of us getting tired first. You think I need the paper, Pike said. I think you needed my signature 4 years ago and you never got it, and every single thing you've done since has been you trying to buy something you were never going to be given. Beckett's voice went quiet. You took a 17-year-old boy for freight routes. You are not a criminal mastermind, Lawrence. You are an employee with a key taped under a table. Preston hit the fire alarm on the wall by the door. That part we had not planned. It was the single best decision anybody made all night. Strobes, sirens, and 40 floors of the Vaughn building's automatic protocol, which unlocks every stairwell and puts a call to Denver PD through without anyone having to dial. The two men by the door looked at each other and chose their lives. Pike got his hand under the table's edge. I got there first, because I already knew exactly where it was, and I closed my fist around the key, and I did the only genuinely reckless thing I have ever done with somebody else's body. I swallowed the memory instead of the key, which is a phrase that makes no sense, so let me say it plainly. I put my hand flat against his wrist. Living things are too loud. I have said that. It is true. It came in like a scream. Ollie's face from the wrong side of the room. A phone call at 6 in the morning, and under it, the thing I was actually reaching for, a number, a bank, a name, all the tidy little places a careful man keeps 4 years of leverage. I let go and staggered, and Beckett caught me, before I hit the floor. 1931, I said, into his shoulder. Meridian Trust, box under his mother's name. It's all in there. Pike stopped moving. Not because of the police, who took another 6 minutes. Because a man who has spent 4 years, making sure only he knows where the paper is, had just heard someone else say it out loud. He looked at me with real, undisguised fear, and I have never enjoyed anything more. How? He said. Family trait, I said. We're very intuitive. The sun came up over Denver about 2 hours later. Preston sat on a curb giving a statement he had been rehearsing, I think, since March. My father arrived at some point and sat down next to him and put a hand on the back of his neck, and neither of them said anything for a very long time, and that is the closest thing to an apology that family had in it. And it was real. Beckett found me on the loading dock with a paramedic's blanket around my shoulders. You put your hand on him, he said. I did. You told me living things are too loud. They are. I pulled the blanket tighter. I'll be hearing that for a while. He sat down beside me. Close, not touching. I traded your bond for my routes, he said. That's still true in the morning. I know. I want you to hold it, not forgive it today. Hold it and let me spend a considerable amount of time being useful to you about it. That's a very corporate proposal. It's the only honest one I have. I looked at him. 6 months of a man hearing one person's voice and never once saying so, and I finally understood it was not a superpower he had, it was a sentence he was serving. New rules, I said. You tell me things before you protect me. Every time, even when I'll argue. You'll argue brilliantly. I will. And Beckett? I tapped my temple. Knock. Something happened to his face that I had been waiting all night to see. It turned out he had a real one in there. Ask me, he said. Are you still listening? Always, he said out loud. But I'll wait. I leaned over and kissed him in the loading dock of his own building with the sun coming up and my brother 40 feet away, pretending not to look, and the cold came off the mountains clean, and cedar and snow, and something warm underneath it that had finally stopped being locked down. The first thing I learned about this life was the sound it made breaking. The second thing I learned was that it was mine, and I intended to keep it, and nobody was ever putting me on a floor again. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you'll definitely love the next one. It's even crazier and more intriguing than you can imagine. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. The next story drops soon.